Hello, my name is Roumiana Vassileva and I'm Route's Business Development Director for Engineered Wood Products. Welcome to Route's RxEvent LVL event. The subject of my presentation today is the present and future of the LVL market in Europe. It's a vast topic to pack in 15 minutes, but as per Einstein, if you don't explain it simply, you probably don't understand it well enough. So let's see if I can humbly take on the challenge. Today we will look together into the pillars of Route's LVL market intelligence. When LVL's beauty and intelligence meet strength and sustainability, what is the European LVL production capacity, consumption, imports and exports, European LVL production per capacity ratio, the new trends on the European LVL market, and in conclusion, the power of investigative perspective. When presenting market intel, everything matters. The data, the sources, the methodology, and how they intertwine findings together. Our data is never off the shelf. Route does not produce cookie-cutter market analysis. We customize the intel to every specific case study. Regarding our sources, Route is the only global LVL equipment supplier who offers turnkey LVL plants. With over 2.5 million cubic meters of installed LVL capacity across the world, it is safe to say that we make it our responsibility to know our customers' business. Concerning our methodology, we first cross-examine the LVL data to build a 360 degrees view of the market. We then plug in micro and macroeconomic parameters and establish forecasts. We survey key stakeholders in the LVL industry, such as producers, distributors, builders, and developers. And finally, we use our findings to confirm core analysis and fuel additional insights. We dive deep, but always with a clear vision of what lies ahead. When one thinks of LVL, the image that comes to mind is that of a sturdy, robust LVL beam or column. But the product that fundamentally assembled us here today is also this, and this, and this, and it's also this. Stunning, versatile, strong, and sustainable. The ultimate goal of new, bold European regulations is to achieve carbon neutrality across Europe by 2050. Significant progress has been made in reducing the operating CO2 emissions of buildings through energy efficiency. LVL is a preferred building material in that aspect, as it is 15 times better as an insulator than masonry and concrete, 400 times better than steel, and over 1,500 times better than aluminium. The second critical target is reducing the embodied carbon emissions, the emissions which are embodied in the construction materials and in the actual construction of the building itself. Needless to point that LVL is superior in that aspect. The efficient mix of structural properties and low carbon footprint positions LVL very high on the list of climate-smart building solutions. This leads to its increasing adoption by major builders, investors, and property developers, and is one of the main tailwinds for European LVL consumption growth. With 18% share of the global structural LVL capacity, Europe is second after North America. There are currently 6 operating LVL manufacturers running 7 LVL plants in Europe with a total nominal capacity of 830,000 cubic meters. A 7th manufacturer, VMG Group, is awaiting the installation of a fully equipped router LVL plant located in Akmenė, Lithuania. After the startup of the VMG LVL facility, planned for the end of 2022, coupled with capacity increases intended by other LVL producers, the European nominal LVL capacity is projected to exceed 1 million cubic meters in 2023. It will be followed then by an annual average 14% increase for the last 3 years of the forecast period, reaching 1.5 million cubic meters by 2026. One original characteristic of the European LVL market is the fact that every LVL producer in Europe is entirely vertically integrated from the lock conditioning to the finished LVL product. Unlike in North America, where there is an entire layer of veneer producers supplying the domestic LVL manufacturers with structurally graded veneers, in Europe, all LVL plants peel and dry their own veneers. In consequence, they utilize all dry veneers for the manufacture of LVL products. Now, what do manufacturers think of the product, and why do they continue to invest in LVL capacity? From production point of view, LVL allows for the best value added to a lock through one of the most efficient yields, which is then further maximized through the veneer grading and composing. This way, partial veneers are composed to full sheets and reintegrated into the main production, while the lower grade veneers, instead of being discarded, are used in the inner plies of the LVL panels or for the manufacturing of industrial applications such as joinery and furniture components. European LVL consumption. There has been a significant expansion of LVL consumption over the past 10 years as European home and non-residential builders increasingly adopt engineered timber. Back in year 2000, European LVL consumption was only 65,000 cubic meters. 21 years later, today, European LVL demand has slightly exceeded 500,000 cubic meters per year. An average annual 6% growth is expected from 2022 until 2026, reaching 635,000 cubic meters by the end of the forecast period. Which are the tailwinds supporting LVL consumption growth in Europe? Very important one, post-COVID recovery of residential construction in key LVL markets in Europe. LVL frame projects were delayed due to lockdowns, but they have not been cancelled. 2021 has marked a frantic speed in LVL construction projects completion, which we believe will result in 26% of European LVL consumption growth. Sustainability and environmental performance. It's an uncontestable growth factor, which we already covered briefly earlier. Faster project completion. LVL is largely used in prefabricated, off-site manufactured light frame systems, both panelized or modular volumetric, delivered just in time to job sites. LVL requires less skilled labor on site. Labor shortages are stalling the construction industry around the world, and Europe is no exception. With more of the construction process moving off-site into automated, factory-controlled environment, labor requirements are substantially reduced. LVL is lighter. As all timber-based products, LVL can be less than 1/5 the weight of concrete. This massive weight reduction leads to thinner, cheaper, and faster-built foundations. LVL enables biophilic structures. It carries a strong value proposition for the spiritual and physical well-being of residents in wooden buildings, as they are airtight, damp-free, and ecological, with healthy indoor air and reduced sound transmission. Where in Europe is LVL mainly consumed? The two largest consuming regions are in Europe are Scandinavia and the UK, which together accounted for 51% of all LVL demand last year. Other developed markets are Germany, France, and Poland. Let's look into imports and exports. And let's start with the easy statement. There are currently no LVL imports in Europe, and we don't foresee any taking place during the forecast period. Why? European LVL mills are more recent and more modern equipped than their North American counterparts. European LVL producers have access to high quality and enough in supply softwood pillar logs. Being vertically integrated, European LVL producers exercise control on variable production costs. European LVL is produced with excellent structural properties aligned with those benchmarked in North America. The North American market demonstrates an ever-growing LVL demand. However, significant labor and high-grade veneer shortages have reduced North American LVL capacity to 75% of the installed one. Securing the domestic market demand with reduced supply capability will remain their priority over exports. Which brings us to the next consideration. We forecast steady growth of European LVL exports to the two key export destinations, North America and Australia. In 2021, we project 180,000 cubic meters of European LVL exports, representing 26% of the projected annual European LVL production. Approximately 47% of the European LVL exports currently shipped to North America, 49% to Australia, and the remaining volume is shipped to the Middle East and South Africa. One of the most interesting parameters to look into is the production per capacity ratio. Driven by increasing domestic LVL demand and exports, European LVL production is projected to grow at an average annual 10% over the horizon of the forecast period, reaching 820,000 cubic meters by 2025. Capacity utilization levels, which we measure with production per capacity ratio, will be high in the beginning of the forecast period. Naturally, we expect Europe to add more capacity to relieve the pressure on supply. This will lead to production per capacity ratios lowering to 61% by 2025, before creeping up again as LVL enters the next cycle of product maturity and development. What are the new trends on the European LVL market? 3 new product development trends I would like to shed a light on: panelization, hybridization, and new industrial applications. Up until a few years ago, LVL was predominantly used as beam, header, rimboard, or flange of an I-joist. Since recently, LVL producers have realized that the versatility of LVL is underutilized. LVL is the only engineered wood product that can be produced both as a load-bearing beam and a load-bearing panel on the same mainstream LVL production line. One of the trendiest and fastest-growing engineered wood products currently is mass timber, or CLT, for its ability to provide a sustainable alternative for mid- and high-rise buildings to concrete and steel. However, one of the disadvantages of CLT is the poorer yield of a log based on sawing technology. This propelled to the center stage the LVL ripped panels. Structural engineered timber elements made from glued LVL members, top and bottom cross-ply LVL panels connected with parallel ply LVL ribs in between. The cavities are then filled with insulation, and the ribs are pre-drilled for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing allowances. The LVL rib panels are used to create ground floors, intermediate floors, and roofs of residential, commercial, and public buildings. These panels are claimed to be more efficient than mass timber. They have the same load-bearing capacity, but use nearly half the amount of wood, coupled with an improved lock yield. Another interesting recent panel development is LVLG, or LVL-based mass timber panel. The product can be used on edge as post, beam, and column, but today I'll focus on its usage as a wall or ceiling panel. The LVLG panel is manufactured by gluing layers of parallel ply or cross-ply LVL to create a mass timber component with thickness up to 350 millimeter, width up to 3.2 meter, and lengths up to 20 meters. LVLG is way lighter than concrete, with better yield than CLT, and has excellent load-bearing properties due to the increased number of structural glue lines between the thin veneers. It is being claimed that the product can save up to 30% in wall thickness versus traditional mass timber walls, delivering so more sellable square meters for the end user. A flagship project for LVLG is the Lighthouse of Stora Enso, a 14-story student residence tower in Joensuu, Finland. The all-timber tower required 50 truck deliveries, compared with the estimated 270 deliveries that would have been required if concrete had been used to construct the entire building. Hybridization. A new trend emerging on the European LVL market is the development of prefabricated hybrid LVL concrete wall components. Such a hybrid wall element was recently brought to the market by Metzewood. It can be used in residential, office, or industrial multi-story buildings. In this new product, the facade is made of concrete, the internal load-bearing core layer, instead of being concrete, is replaced with cross-ply LVL panel, and there is an insulation layer. The advantages of an all-concrete wall panel are less concrete reinforcement needed due to the high tensile and compression strength of cross-ply LVL, increasing sustainability by decreasing CO2 emissions, and reduced overall wall component weight. Industrial applications. It is uncommon to think of structural LVL as a component in non-structural or industrial applications. And yet, this is the new design development which giant global furniture manufacturer IKEA undertook. IKEA decided to use high-grade structural LVL as a load-bearing component in some of their furniture designs, replacing sawn timber. Either clip rails in convertible sofas or mid-load-bearing beams for double beds, structural LVL was chosen due to its high strength per weight ratio, accurate dimensions, straight defect-free and stable components, and excellent connectors withdrawal resistance. Currently, IKEA is converting more furniture designs, whereas LVL replaces sawn timber. I know you will never look at your IKEA sofa the same way ever again. I know I don't. Another newborn industrial application is the utilization of LVL for the construction of wind power plants. You will hear more about this unique application in the upcoming keynote presentation of Swedish engineering and industrial design company Modvion. Time to end this European LVL market journey, which I hope you enjoyed taking with me. To prove that we didn't get lost, let me have a circle back to our starting point. What makes market intelligence actionable? Having the right perspective to the market. A zoom-in perspective is about details, making opportunities look large and compelling at the expense of recognizing the big picture. A zoom-out perspective, often seen in the off-the-shelf market studies, presents general market trends. The trap, however, is being so far above the fray and not recognizing immediate market opportunities and threats. What we aspire to offer by Raute to our new and existing customers is clear, focused market perspective backed up with technology proficiency. Let me conclude this presentation with a virtual wink to all of you who honor us with your presence today. If you wish to be leaders in your world, come manufacture in ours. Thank you for your attention and have a great day.